I almost didn't go that weekend. I had a headache on Friday evening, the kind that settles right behind your eyes and makes fluorescent lights feel like a personal attack. My boyfriend, we'd been together for 2 years by then, called and said his mother was expecting me at the lake house for the long weekend, and that it would mean a lot to everyone. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed in my apartment in Mississauga, staring at my half-packed overnight bag, thinking one more time, just one more time. That was my first mistake. My name is Serena. I'm 31 years old. I work as a licensed practical nurse at a regional hospital in the GTA, and I say that not to set a scene but because it matters later, a lot. I was careful with money, I paid my taxes on time, I had a good credit score and a 5-year plan, and I genuinely thought I had built something solid. A career, a relationship, a life that was mine. Then I met his family, and I learned that some people look at what you've built and immediately start calculating how to take it from you. My boyfriend's name was Callum. No, wait, let me think about what to call him. I'll call him my boyfriend for now. That's what he was. That's all he turned out to be. His mother, I'll call her his mother, was a woman who had lived her entire adult life in Cottage country north of Barrie, in a house on a lake that his late grandfather had built in the 70s. She had the kind of effortless confidence that comes not from achievement, but from never having been told no. She drove a white SUV, she wore linen in the summer and cashmere in the fall. She air-kissed my cheeks every time she saw me and called me darling, in a way that somehow always made me feel like an afterthought. His sister, I'll call her his sister, was 26, and had recently gone through a divorce that she did not discuss, but that had clearly sharpened something cold and calculating behind her eyes. She looked at me the way some women look at something they want to own, or failing that, destroy. The first time I went dizzy at their house, I was sitting at the long dining table overlooking the lake. It was September. The leaves were just starting to turn. His mother had made her famous white wine cream sauce over pasta. She mentioned 3 times that it was her own recipe, and I'd had 1 glass of Chardonnay. 1. I was being careful because I was driving back Sunday. I remember the candles on the table and the way the light hit the water outside, and then I remember nothing. I woke up on the pull-out sofa in the sunroom. My boyfriend was crouched beside me, looking worried in the performative way people look worried when they want you to believe they're worried. He said I'd fallen asleep mid-dinner. Just drifted off, he said, like I was a toddler at a birthday party. His mother appeared in the doorway with a glass of water and a sympathetic tilt of her head, and said I'd been working too hard, that nurses took on too much, that I needed to rest. I was groggy in a way that 1 glass of wine does not produce. My head felt packed with cotton wool. But I thanked her for the water, and I drove home the next morning and I told myself, you work night shifts, Serena. You are tired. It happens. Second mistake. The second time it happened, it was October. A Thanksgiving dinner. His aunt and uncle were there. They drove up from Owen Sound. And 2 cousins whose names I still can't remember, because I spent most of that evening trying to stay in a conversation long enough to matter. His sister kept refilling my apple cider without asking, which I thought was generous at the time. The table was loud and cheerful in the way that large family gatherings are loud and cheerful when you are not actually part of the family, when you are the guest who is being evaluated. I was in the middle of answering a question about my work when the room started softening at the edges, not spinning, not tilting. Just softening like someone had turned a dial. I set down my fork. I thought I need some air. I thought I need to excuse myself. I didn't get the chance. I woke up in the same sunroom, on the same pull-out sofa. But this time when I sat up, I noticed my cardigan was inside out. I was sure I had put it on correctly that morning. I am a nurse. I dress carefully. I noticed, and I noted it, and I folded the thought away somewhere small and didn't look at it. His mother said I'd had a fainting spell. Low blood pressure, probably. She said her own mother had suffered from the same thing. Very common in women, she said. Nothing to worry about. I didn't say anything. I drove home. I booked a GP appointment. Everything came back normal. Iron levels fine. Blood pressure fine. EKG unremarkable. I still didn't connect the dots, which embarrasses me now, but grief does strange things to your ability to trust what you see. My father had passed away the previous spring. My boyfriend had been present and steady through the whole thing, or I believed he had been, and I think I was still carrying so much gratitude for that I couldn't afford emotionally to suspect him of anything. The mind protects itself. That's not weakness. That's survival. The 3rd time I passed out at that house, it was March. The lake was still frozen. There was no dinner party, just a quiet Sunday roast. His mother's suggestion, not mine. And his sister was there with a new boyfriend she didn't introduce properly, and there was wine, and there was the same softening at the edges, and I woke up on the same sofa. But this time I was alone in the sunroom, and the door was shut, and when I reached for my phone on the coffee table, the screen was already unlocked. My banking app was open, not on my e-transfer history. I stared at that screen for a long time. My most recent e-transfer had not been made by me. It had gone out 40 minutes ago to a name I didn't recognize for $1,500. I closed the app. I put the phone face down on the sofa. I listened to the sounds of the house, his mother moving around the kitchen, the television on somewhere, low voices, and I was very still, the way you are still when you realize the ground underneath you is not what you thought it was. I didn't say anything that day either. I drove home and I called my best friend. Her name is not in any list, so I'll call her my best friend. And I told her everything, the fainting, the inside-out cardigan, the phone. She was silent for a long time on the other end of the line, and then she said, "Serena, you need to get a blood test." She was right. I should have done it sooner. I know that. I know. But I also need you to understand that I was in a relationship with someone I loved or thought I loved, and the alternative, the thing I was starting to suspect, was so catastrophic that my brain kept offering me other explanations. Tiredness, low blood sugar, anxiety. I am a nurse. I knew what GHB did to a body. I knew what it looked like, and I was choosing not to know because knowing would mean everything was different. Everything I had trusted, everything I had believed. I got the blood test 3 days after that Sunday. I know, too late for most things to still be detectable. But the results came back with a trace marker that my doctor said she wanted to discuss in person. She was careful with her language. She said she couldn't confirm anything definitively, but that she was documenting it and that I should be aware of my rights. My hands didn't shake when she said it. That surprised me. I think I had known for a while. I went home that night, and I sat in my kitchen for about 2 hours without turning on any lights. I thought about what I was going to do. I am a planner. I have always been a planner. My father used to say I came out of the womb with a checklist, so I made one. Item 1. I needed to know what they were looking for on my phone. Why the e-transfer history? Were they looking at my savings? My TFSA? I had a good amount set aside. Nothing dramatic, but enough. Enough to be interesting to people who had been watching me for months. Item 2. I needed to know who was involved. My boyfriend, his mother, his sister, all of them, none of them. And this was some terrible coincidence? I gave that last option about 4 seconds of serious consideration and then I let it go. Item 3. I needed evidence. Real evidence. Not a feeling, not a suspicious blood marker, not an inside-out cardigan. Something that would hold up in a conversation with a lawyer, or a police officer, or both. I did not confront my boyfriend. That was the most important decision I made in this entire thing, and I want to say it clearly. I did not show my hand. I smiled and I answered his texts and I agreed to another visit to the lake house in April, and in the meantime, I made arrangements. My best friend has a brother who works in IT security. He helped me set up 2 things: a small camera, completely legal in Canada, positioned to record common areas only, nothing private, hidden in the lining of my weekend bag, and a remote monitoring app on my phone that would alert me if anyone accessed my banking without the phone being unlocked by my face or fingerprint. I also changed every password on every account I had and removed my boyfriend's name from my emergency contact list at work. That last one hurt more than I expected. I told my boyfriend I'd love to come for Easter weekend. He sounded genuinely happy. That almost broke me. Easter at the lake house, his mother made lamb. There was an aunt I hadn't met before, his father's sister, up from Sudbury, and she was warm and funny, and I wondered, briefly, if she knew what was happening in this house, if she was part of it, or if she was just a woman eating Easter lamb who happened to share a family with people who drugged their son's girlfriend on a pull-out sofa and rifled through her finances. I nursed the same glass of sparkling water all evening. Every time his sister moved toward the drinks table, I tracked her from across the room. I ate the lamb. I talked about my work. I answered questions about whether we were thinking about moving in together. His mother asked this with a careful smile. And I said, "Oh, we haven't really talked about timelines yet." And she said, "Of course, these things take time." And she was looking at me in a way that I now understood completely. They needed me nearby. Or they needed me committed, legally, financially, in writing, to their son, so that what they were slowly working toward would be easier. I didn't know exactly what that was yet. I had a theory, but theories are not evidence. About 2 hours into dinner, I excused myself to use the washroom, and I switched my glass with the one that had been poured for me, but that I had not yet touched. The one I had been watching his sister refill twice while she thought I wasn't looking. Then I went back to the table and I waited. Around 9:30, I told everyone I was feeling a bit drowsy and was going to lie down for a bit. I saw something pass between his mother and his sister, just a look, just half a second, and that look told me everything I needed to know. I went to the sunroom, I lay down on the pull-out sofa, I closed my eyes. I breathed slowly. My heart was going very fast. I was not asleep. I heard the kitchen sounds wind down. I heard the aunt say her goodbyes and the crunch of her car on the gravel outside. I heard the television go quiet. I heard footsteps in the hallway. His mother's, I thought, the light, confident tread of someone moving through her own home, and then the sunroom door opened. I kept my eyes closed and my breathing even, and I thought, this is what it feels like. This is what they thought they were doing, every time. His mother stood in the doorway for a moment. Then she came inside and I heard her pull up a chair and I heard the click-click of fingers on glass, and I understood that she was going through my phone. She spoke in a low voice, not to me, clearly on a call she thought I couldn't hear. The TFSA account again. She has almost $38,000 in there. We need to move before she changes the beneficiary. A pause, then. Callum will handle his part. Just be ready on your end. I didn't move. I didn't open my eyes. I lay there with my heart hammering in my chest and my face completely still, and when she left the room 15 minutes later, I waited another 10 before I sat up, retrieved my phone from the coffee table, and checked the camera in my bag. It had recorded everything. Clear audio, clear visual. His mother, sitting 3 feet from me, going through my financial accounts and calling someone to coordinate. I had what I needed. I did not confront anyone that night. I went to sleep, actual sleep this time, and I drove home in the morning and I called a lawyer before I called anyone else. The lawyer was the right call. She walked me through everything, what the recording captured, what it established, what law enforcement could do with it, and what I needed to do in the meantime to protect my assets. I moved the TFSA funds that same week. I changed my beneficiaries. I documented the unauthorized e-transfer from March and filed a report. I canceled all pre-authorized access I had ever given my boyfriend to anything. Then I told my boyfriend we needed to talk, and we met for coffee at a place near my apartment. Public, bright, lots of people, and I ended the relationship. I didn't explain why. I said I needed space and that I didn't see a future for us, and he looked at me across the table with something that I can only describe as calculation, not grief, and I thought, that's it. That's the thing I was protecting myself from finally showing itself. He said, that's fine, I think we both knew this wasn't working. No arguments, no questions, just a careful retreat. 3 weeks later, I received a call from the fraud investigation unit at my bank. The unauthorized March transfer had been traced. The name on the receiving account was his sister's. The investigation that followed was handled by people far more equipped for it than I am, so I'll only say this. His mother, his sister, and my now ex-boyfriend were all part of it. They had done this before. Not to me specifically, but the pattern, the access, the coordination, the beneficiary angle had the markings of something practiced. My lawyer said that, not me. I didn't want to believe it either, but the evidence was its own answer. His mother was charged. His sister was charged. My ex-boyfriend was questioned at length, and what came out of that questioning was enough that charges were laid against him as well, though the legal process is still ongoing as I speak, and I'm not able to say more about that part. What I can tell you is what happened the day I found out that the accounts had been frozen and the arrest warrants issued. I was at work on a 12-hour shift, standing in a supply room doing inventory, and I got a text from my lawyer that said, "It's done." 2 words. I put down the clipboard. I leaned against the shelf. I stood there for about 60 seconds doing absolutely nothing. Then I went back to work because there were patients who needed care, and that has always been the thing I know how to do. Show up, be useful, keep going. I tell this story because I spent a long time after it was over blaming myself for not seeing it sooner, for going back after the second time I woke up on that sofa, for loving someone who was participating in something terrible, for being, as I thought of it, too trusting. But here's what I've come to believe after a lot of conversations with my best friend and my GP and my therapist. Trusting people is not a character flaw. It is a reasonable starting position for a life. What happened to me was not a failure of my judgment. It was the result of deliberate, sustained deception by people who had decided I was a resource, not a person. The $400 they transferred out of my account in March, that's what they decided I was worth in the short term. A test run. They were building toward the TFSA, toward the beneficiary change, toward something that would have required me to be even more incapacitated or more legally bound to their son, or possibly both. I don't let myself think too long about what would have come next. I don't need to. I got out before it got there. My lake views now come from the screened-in porch of a cottage I rent with 3 friends in August. Nobody pours my drinks without asking. Nobody stands over me while I sleep. Nobody calls me darling like it costs them nothing. And when I drive north on the 400 on a Friday afternoon, and the trees open up and the light changes the way it does in cottage country, I think about my father who loved this province and who told me once, when I was very small, that the most important thing a person could be was awake. Present. Paying attention. He meant it philosophically. He was talking about gratitude, but I think about it differently now. Stay awake. You never know who's sitting in the next room, counting what you have.